Hi, everybody, and welcome to our session, WIP 2.0, connecting the power of Procore and your ERP to maximize profits. My name's Chris Porter. I'm the director here at Prophix of Industry Solutions. My primary focus is our construction customer base. I spent the last 10 years of my career in various forms of finance and also in the corporate performance management industry. I started off as a financial analyst, moved into consulting, was a project manager for a brief period of time. But in today's presentation, I'm just going to kind of walk you through something that I'm really passionate about, which is data and how you can maximize the use of two amazingly important systems in your business. Those systems being Procore and your accounting or your ERP system. And so I think, unlocked something that I just want to share with everybody and want to share to help contractors and help the industry at large. Look at something that we've been doing for, gosh, when was WIP reporting probably originated and started, 20, 30 years ago, probably. And share with something that I've discovered can really help contractors understand their business and understand their projects better, understand their people better. And so we'll talk a little bit about the why and the how first and foremost. Why do we do WIP reporting and how do we do it? But then we'll kind of move into WIP 2.0, like the future of WIP, what's new, what's different. And now that you have these two amazing systems in your business, how can you use the two of them together to maximize the data that's at your fingertips? And then we'll talk about how you can turn that data into actionable, things and actually use that data, not just, as sort of inquisitive information, but how can you actually use that data to run your business better? So let's start off with the first section, WIP, why and how. So I want to start off with just what's the definition of WIP, right? Work in progress is a report in an accounting schedule that's a component of the company's balance sheet. Oddly enough, it's true. The goal of the WIP schedule is to have financial reporting tools that show you if you are over or under bills in a cash positive or negative position, not only for each project, but when all the individual projects are taken together or consolidated for the entire company. If the WIP's actually done in an accurate and timely manner, I thought that was a funny part of this definition that I found. It should also serve as an early indication or warning if and when a project appears to be heading over budget. And so I got this from Level Set. And so the bottom line is, if you look at these things, we do it out of necessity, right? We have to produce a WIP because it's a necessity, right? We have to do it for accounting standards. We have to do it to be able to book our, revenue entries, and we have to do it to understand, how our job's doing overall. It helps us understand the overall job profitability, but as I'm going to talk about in a little bit, the devil is in the details, right? We can't just stop at job level, top level WIP. By combining that data from Procore and the accounting system, it actually can become something that's a lot deeper, right? And oftentimes, the top level WIP and the job level WIP sometimes becomes irrelevant in many cases, right? We oftentimes in our jobs manage our jobs at a phase level or a task level or a cost code level. At the end of the day, that's where the action can be taken. That's the area that we really need to get down to. And so at the end of the day, I thought this was just a really interesting way of looking at WIP. This is the why, right? This is why we do WIP. And most importantly, I want to remind you, I want to come back to this. If the WIP is done accurately and in a timely manner, I think that's quite ironic that the definition, the people who wrote this definition felt the need to put that in there, right? And so saying if it was done it accurately, we'd also kind of assume that, yeah, hopefully it's done accurately. And secondly, in a timely manner. Again, why did the writer of this definition feel the need to put that in there? And I think we all know why, but let's talk about that in here in a second. So let's talk about the how. This is the depiction of the how at the end of the day, right? Like the how is ultimately most of us, we use spreadsheets, right? We dump data out of Procore, of our ERP, maybe our CRM systems, who knows, but we put it into spreadsheets, right? I think this is where that writer of that definition, this is why he or she wrote in, if it's done accurately and in a timely manner. The reason why is most likely because they probably used Excel or spreadsheets to do it, right? And so at the end of the day, Spreadsheets aren't secure. You're putting highly sensitive, important information into spreadsheets, but it's something that takes time, right? People build these massive spreadsheets, and they become the bane of their existence, right? They become like that person who built it. We really hope they never leave the company because no one else knows how it was done. And project managers, people like us working on jobs, owning the profitability of the jobs, so much of that is dependent on getting things timely, getting things accurately, right? Not just from a data perspective, but you can relate to timeliness and accuracy when it comes to getting materials and getting labor and getting equipment, and making sure that those quotes that you're giving a customer, the estimators are giving, making sure that they are accurate. Timeliness and accuracy are probably two of the biggest and most important pillars to running a profitable job, ultimately a profitable business. That shouldn't just stop at the job site. It needs to start and stop, and be continuous throughout the entire life cycle of the job, from the data that you get from IT and accounting to, the actual work that you're doing. Timeliness, accuracy, it's critical. It's critical at the end of the day. And I think at the end of the day, the current process is broken, right? So much of what we do in the industry, we've been doing it for so long, right? And I think one thing that, the world that we've been living in recently in the last like 2 years, I think you know what I'm talking about. The one thing that typically happens in these sort of worldwide events is change, and people start to rethink how things should be done. And so whether it's the security of your data, I think that's become super important. That's a big reason why so many people love and trust Procore, because you can know and trust that your data is secure. It's in the cloud. It's of the utmost security in the industry. So, why should that stop once you take the data out, right? It should just continue, right? And time is money, right? If you are able to check and follow the costs, the billings, the margin of your job, if you were able to do that every single day, ask yourself a question. If I had that at my fingertips every day, if I got notifications from the system, if something was, erroneous, or AI was able to tell me that, hey, this is trending in a not so good direction, and we might have some margin fade, would you be able to manage your job better? Yeah, probably, right? And so at the end of the day, I think there's more than that, that your whip could be telling you. If this is, if you're able to maximize the combination of Procore project level data together with what's in your accounting system, and you can put that all together, there's some really interesting things I want to share with you. And a lot of it you've got already in your business. A lot of it you're tracking already today, but it's a matter of how can I make use of this? And so I think, again, it's not bad to sit there and say, maybe we should rethink this. Just because we've been doing it for so long, there's opportunity, always opportunity to be had. And so I think that's the exciting part of where we're at in our technology evolution here in the construction industry. I wanted to share sort of an interesting report from Deloitte on the future of construction, though, first and foremost. They've spiked out 5 different key trends. And at the end of the day, they listed that 3 of those 5 pillars are basically, technology related. And you can see how that theme of automation and, differentiation, you can see how that's super, super key. And so they noted, though, in this report that I found, was that basically 76% of construction executives are investing in digital technology to address cost and margin challenges. 76% are looking to technology, right? Not people, not some new supplier or something like that. They're looking to technology to help them manage margins and manage costs better. And that's because, similar in this report, 70% of people said that 70% of their projects are off budget and oftentimes delayed, right? And so again, how can we look at technology? How can we actually do things differently, right? So at the end of the day, I want to shift into WIP 2.0. What is it about the way that you could be doing your WIP that could tell you more about your business, right? And so let's shift into that here real quick. E&R recently published an article releasing findings that basically profit margins had reached plus 25% in the second quarter of 2021, rising from plus 14 in the first quarter. So first and foremost, things are definitely looking up. But I don't want us to just rest on our laurels to say, okay, things are recovering, things are getting better. We shouldn't, channel this, change and channel this thing that's clearly affected our industry. We should continue to go with that and continue to go with what our lessons that we've learned from the past, 18 to 24 months. And so at the end of the day, how can we continue to channel this, right? I don't want us just to say, okay, things are getting better, things are recovering. We don't need to, we can put that thing back to the back burner. When I share with you what I'm going to share with you here in a second, I think it's going to be one of those things that, gosh, I don't care whether we just went through something that was, worldwide change. We should have been doing this before that, right? And so what is your WIP really telling you? If you look at a WIP at a high level, the top level of your WIP, all that the WIP is telling you mostly is, are we on budget? Are we billed? And how much have we completed of the job? And how much do we have left, right? That's your backlog. What does that really tell you though, right? If you can combine your Procore data, your project level Procore data, with your ERP's job cost master, this is the ticket, is combining the job transactional information that you have in Procore with your job cost master, which is where you're setting up the job, right? You're adding, what's the job ID, the name, the customer, the project manager, the estimator, the salesperson, what kind of job type is it? What kind of, what state, maybe what zip code is it in there? Can you imagine the amount of information that, if you had the technology to do so, and you actually could use some of that information, what more could you learn, right? What more could you learn about your job and about your WIP? Well, take your project managers, for example. We're looking at here at a project manager level WIP report. And so if you were able to aggregate, like, let's say the last 5 years of results from projects by project manager, what could that tell you? Well, it could tell you who keeps the best margins. You could look at, what was the estimated margin for all of my jobs by project manager, and what was the ending job margin for project managers. Boom, right then and there, best margins. Who's my best project manager, fiscally responsible, if you will. You can look at, what was the original end date, right? Start and end date of your jobs. Again, you have a sample size of, let's say, 5 years plus worth of data. You can actually start to make pretty good, decisions and say, yeah, these are our best project managers. These people keep us best on time. And then, of course, like, who keeps the best over under billings, right? And so you look at that, and this project manager WIP, boom, just tells you so much more about your project managers, because you've combined all the data that you've stored in Procore about the job with that one, just, that's the ticket, the job cost master in your ERP. It's there. You set up all of these fields, but what do you do with them at the end of the day? What happens with those fields after the fact? And so at the end of the day, what could you do with customer level data? So let's take a look right now at a customer level WIP. Who's our most profitable customer? If you're doing work for a lot of people year after year after year, right? But then also take the customer data as well, because you're setting up, when you set up a AR for a customer, you're setting up, where are they from? What's their address? What's their zip code? Maybe, what's their revenue size? Who knows, right? Combine the job cost master now together with the customer master list. What more information do you now have to learn about your customer as a result of combining, again, transactional level data in Procore about the job with the, customer data that you've set up, in the ERP and the accounting system for the receivables? And so, who are our most profitable customers is the first and foremost thing that you could get from that. But what else could you get from it as well, is the question. You could also learn more about your estimators. Who's most accurate. What's the win-loss analysis? Don't just start bringing in information, from jobs that you've actually been working on. Well, if you could bring in estimating data or your RFIs as well, and which jobs you've won, which jobs you've lost, you can start to do some pretty interesting and cool analysis there as well. So again, it's, you want to break down those silos of data between the estimating data, the RFI data, and, again, the underlying information. Did we win or did we lose that job? And then as well, you start to look at who's most accurate, right? When you set up that job cost master, you're putting in who was the estimator of that job. And again, over a larger sample size and a longer term of data, you actually start to get into some interesting information of who's my most accurate estimator. Right? You should care about that. I think that's pretty important to know who's, putting out the most accurate estimates, who's winning the most. So again, there's some pretty cool and interesting information to be unlocked there. Which job types are most profitable? That's pretty important as well. You guys might do different job types in terms of like the revenue recognition of jobs, but also maybe the job durations. You might want to start to look at, how long are these jobs that we're doing, and how much information can we get about longer jobs? Do we typically make more money on longer jobs? Do we typically, run longer and run on a percentage basis? Do those jobs typically go over in terms of the schedule, over in the cost, the billings, right? How much more information could you actually get by job type and duration as well? So you might want to start to look at what jobs should we be bidding on? Should we really be bidding on these huge jobs? Because at the end of the day, maybe the data is telling you something otherwise. That the longer the job, the more risk to profitability there may be in your business. But also, I think this one's interesting too. Zip codes, right, or states. God forbid, we have another shutdown, and a certain zip code or a certain state, things get halted. You want to know how much of your backlog is going to be tied up in those areas, right? And as well, think about what you could do there too with estimating data or bid data or RFI data by state, by zip code. Where do we win the most bids? Right? And what areas or what states or what zip codes are we most profitable? It might seem trivial, but it could be pretty important, right? Where are you going to be sending your estimators out to be bidding on jobs, right? Focusing their attention in the right places, right? So at the end of the day, there's some really, really cool value to be unlocked by bringing that job level Procore data together with job cost master. There's just so many cool ways you can start to spin and pivot your data and things like that. And so think about that, because it's there. The data is in your business already today. You're already doing this. The data's there. It's just a matter of really extracting it and making use of it. But let's talk about looking beyond the top line as well. Drilling down into the details, as I said before, this is where the action can be taken. Start to look at producing a WIP on the frequency that you do today, but start to produce it in a greater level of detail, right? Do conditional formatting, do auto ranking on, at a phase level, what should our margin be, right? Rank those phase level codes, to determine which of the phases are we potentially losing money on, which of the phases are we making the most money on, and start to actually produce WIP at an actionable level. It's really, really, really difficult to take action on a WIP, in the more traditional way that we've all been doing it for years at the top job level. There's no action to be taken other than, okay, it's in a really good position, we're good, or hey, we're underbilled in this situation, go bill the customer. Well, for what? We're in a margin fade position on this particular job. We're losing profit. Well, on what? Right? So start to produce the WIP at a greater level of detail, and you will instantly find the actions that you can take, right? And so your ERP can provide the deep insight into payables, receivables, into payroll, into the cash position of the job. And so if you can bring that all together, you get a single version of the truth, basically, right? Going from one system to another system to get analytics, it can be very cumbersome. But if you can bring it all together, there's just some really cool and really good information there as well. And then if you bring your estimating data together with your active jobs and your project schedule, you'll be able to better prepare your crews and subcontractors for what work might be coming down the pipe. And so again, there's some really interesting, when you start to really connect the dots and you start to understand what are all these different systems that we're using, what are they telling us, or what could they be telling us? There's some really big aha moments, and I think that's what's really exciting here. We all use these different systems in our business today, but if you really combine them together, that's really where the power can be unlocked. And so at the end of the day, you really want to combine that data together. You want to get it in one place. This is where a lot of contractors I'm seeing, they're sitting down and they're saying, okay, what's our data warehouse strategy, right? How can we bring all this information together? We need it in one place. That's your first step here. Your first step is, how do we get this data all together in one place, right? Contractors on average use more pieces of technology and software than like most other industries. I think on average, a contractor, if you include like desktop applications and stuff like that, combined with like sort of the corporate wide stuff, they use on average about 12 different applications, right? So ask yourself, how do I see them all in one place? How do I understand the work that we've done in the past, which is going to be in Procore and your ERP, the work that we're doing today, that's going to be in Procore as well, and the work that we might do in the future as well. In the future, that's going to come from like your ProS, your estimating software, your CRMs, your Salesforces. How can I understand all those different pieces of data together? Well, that's where the data warehousing strategy can really come into play. And so I'd encourage you, challenge your colleagues. There's no reason why not to say, hey, we're using all these different systems. What are we doing to see it all in one place? Right. And so if you have that, then you got that single version of the truth that everybody's kind of operating off of. And as we come back to the definition we talked about earlier, that definition of, assuming that the WIP is accurate and timely will be no more. Right? Use technology, get away from those spreadsheets, and make use of that data that you already have in your business today. So if we kind of look at this, at the end of the day, what we're really kind of looking for and what we're looking, at is, how do we use data in an actionable way, right? How do we combine information together in our businesses to use and make actions on the information that we're putting together? If you're only just sitting there, every week, every month doing your WIP reviews, and you're finding yourself commonly saying, well, we need to get into the details there, or can we drill in? And you walk away from that WIP review and there's action items to be taken to get more data, to get answers so you can take action, then something fundamentally needs to change. And so the amount of information that you probably already have in your business, you can take action, right? But it's a matter of putting together that data strategy and really figuring out, as a company, is data strategy, is data warehousing, is analytics an executive level priority, right? Is it something that, we sit down and we actually say to ourselves, if we could understand our businesses better, if we could understand our PMs, our estimators, our customers, if we could, our job types, if we understood all of that better, could we run a more profitable business? And I'm sure the answer is unequivocally yes. And the bigger point, though, is 76% of construction executives, coming back to that Deloitte report, are looking to technology to help solve margin fade and cost challenges. So they're looking to technology to do that. And so if you think about that, you think about the fact that so many people are starting this journey and they're going down this route, they're looking at it and saying, I can gain a competitive advantage in my market. If I understand my business, if I understand everything that much better than the next person, I'll be able to bid more accurately. I'll be able to bid more aggressively. I'll be able to maintain margins and maintain profits and maintain billings better than the next person. And at the end of the day, if you bring it all the way back, you'll probably be able to maintain time and schedule for your customers and the owners that you're doing work for. There's a correlation to be made for all of this. And so at the end of the day, I think this is the exciting future, right? We all have these systems. We're all using Procore. We're all using some form of an accounting system. It's a matter of now unlocking the power of, what's actually here, what's actually at our fingertips today, and putting the right technology in place to help us do that. So I just wanted to thank everybody for coming to the session today, learning a little bit more about the new and inventive ways that we can look at doing WIP. I would encourage you, go back and look at what you're tracking in your job cost master. Look at what you're tracking about the jobs. It comes down to the attributes of the job. That's it. Using the attributes that you track about your job and turning that into something better, and turning that into something bigger than just one line on a report. So if you want more information or you want to reach out to me and have a discussion, I'd love to hear from you. Our email is construction@prophix.com. And once again, really thank you for coming to today's session, and love to hear from you.